Hello guys and welcome to game 8 of my series versus National Master. My name is Chidi and in this game we are going to be featuring round 2 of the Brasiliense Classic third qualifiers. And yeah, in round 1, if you watched that video, I had a really unfortunate loss where I had a great position from the start to the middle, and then from there I lost my chance to win an advantage, and from there it was just an equal game. And not being able to accept the reality of the position, I tried to force my hand, and that just got me in trouble and led to me losing the game. So from this game on, I swore to myself, I'm not going to lose any games like that ever again. I'm not going to play emotionally. I'm going to play what the position demands, and I'm going to play good, solid chess. And this game is definitely a demonstration of that. So this is game 2. And it starts off with e4. My opponent is Enzo Gasparotto, a young kid from my city. I've never seen him at a tournament, and he plays e4. So against e4, I always play the Sicilian defense with c5. And we go into knight f3, knight c6 by me, knight c3. So I'm expecting ideas of bishop b5. I'm expecting all of these ideas. So here I play g6, and now the move I would expect here, most of any other move, is to play just d4, and d4 would be the better move, I'd say. Just break open the opening and accepting the position here after bishop g7, bishop e3, which transposes to the main line. But he plays bishop c4 a bit differently, and against bishop c4, usually they want to set up some attacks on this f7 pawn, kind of like an Italian position. So here I just continue developing naturally, and I think I play a key move here, which is bishop g7. It's already the theoretical line if you're playing the main line Sicilian, accelerated Sicilian. But I think this is especially good because I wasn't just playing this out like it's theory. I was actually thinking about every move, and this move, my thought process was, if I play bishop g7, he can't really play d4 if he wants to. So d4 is now off the cards. If I play the knight f6, maybe d4 was possible, I'm not sure. I don't think that bishop c4 and d4 mix that well, but maybe it was an option. So at least now I take away that option with bishop g7. So moving forwards, he plays castles, knight f6, and a3, which is really a passive move. Okay, you take away some squares for black, but you're not really pushing your advantage. You didn't really play the opening exceptionally forcing. Like I said, d4 would have been way better. It would have been a more active way of playing, but since you're going to play bishop c4, a6, a3, sorry, you're probably going to play d3. So here I just castle, and sure enough, he plays d3. And now my thought process is, okay, I'm definitely equalizing the position, so how do I make something happen here? And the way I came up with a plan was, okay, let's play in the center, because I think we're ready to play something like e6 and d5, and I'm not really sure what white can do to respond against that. So sure enough, I go e6, rook e1. Yeah, okay, you get the open e file, but still, I'm going to have the center. I'm going to have a pawn on d5 and c5, so that's very good central control. So I'm happy with this. I'm not too upset about giving you the e file, so you can have it. I'll kick your bishop back, and now this is where I had to make another important decision. And looking at this position right here, I really wasn't happy with any ideas of pawn to b6 and bishop b7, just because, yeah, my bishop will be nicely placed, but maybe that's a bit overzealous, and maybe you need to play something a bit more conservative. And if I'm not mistaken, I played the top engine move here. Let me just check right now. Load up an engine. Yeah, I played the best move here. So another option would be to play h6, pawn to h6, just stopping this bishop g5 idea. And the move I play here, which is the top engine move, is bishop e6. Now, this is why it's really important to know your openings and know exactly what the pawn structure is sending you into, because this here is kind of like a Tarrasch position where there's this d pawn, and generally there's not going to be this c pawn generally, if this is a Tarrasch defense, then the bishop will capture on c5 after white captures in the center, and then there will be this isolated queen spawn. But in this position, it's a very similar pawn structure where there's pressure along this file here, along this diagonal, and the knight is attacking here. So I think bishop e6 was really good, just because in case of any attacks from this bishop, like let's just say he plays knight g5 and takes this knight and takes this bishop, now my pawn can recapture in the future, and once it does, I'll have a very nice center. I'll have an open f file and attack his king. So this was more or less my thinking, and yeah, sure enough, he does go knight g5, but knight g5 is an inaccuracy, and I was planning for this because I was trying to provoke this. I don't know how I do it. It's just kind of like an intuitive thing. Like I kind of know what people are gonna play if I play a certain thing, and I knew that if I played bishop e6, for some reason he's gonna play knight g5, which is an imprecision, and he does play knight g5, and knight g5 is an imprecision because this is kind of like a king's Indian defense, in the sense where black. Let's just say that these pieces are flipped, and then white would have a bishop on e3. There's this maneuver where black can go knight to g4 and attack this bishop, and then with the knight supporting from f3, the bishop can drop over to g5 and attack the queen and gain an important tempo on the queen. So this is something that I had in the back of my mind, and it's the exact same position except it's flipped. So I play here bishop g4. This is exactly why you need to know your openings and your pawn structures, because all of these ideas are super intertwined and they can shift over. You can have one opening which goes into like a certain idea from a pawn structure, and this is that example here. So bishop g4 on the board, and I was expecting him to play knight f3, and I'd play something like h6 and be okay, and yeah, this would be very comfortable for me. Unfortunately for him, he makes a mistake and plays f3. Now, why is f3 a mistake? Well, better yet, there's a very big underlying idea to why I played bishop g4 in the first place. And if we go back to knight g5, we can see that I can easily defend this by playing like queen to d7, knight takes, pawn takes, and I get this pawn formation, and I can defend this pawn. If something like queen e2, then rook a to e8, and I'm completely fine here. So why would I play like this? I mean, why wouldn't I not play like this? Because when I play bishop g4, I'm relocating my bishop because his knight has been relocated to g5. And generally, a good rule of thumb is to keep in mind that the bishop is more flexible than the knight, because the bishop can jump more squares. So it's really easy to relocate a bishop and still have it be very active. Whereas a knight, it can only be extremely active from a certain point. Like from here, it has a specific function of hitting this, and not anything else really. Maybe capturing here if I go back, and that's just about it. Whereas my bishop from any of these squares will have a bigger purpose underlying. So yeah, so knight f3 would be best. f3 is played, and here I play bishop to f5, and really I'm trying to provoke him now. This move is purely provocative. It's not the best move, and the idea here is that if white wants to play for an advantage, you have to go super crazy with like g4. And I was calculating many lines here. Let's just say you play g4. My idea would be to play bishop c8. c8 is a bit better just because we're not ready to go to e6 anymore. And if we play bishop d7, then we lose a pawn through knight takes, bishop takes, and yeah, probably counterplay, but wouldn't be too happy about losing this d pawn. So bishop c8, knight h3, and the reason you play g4 is to create this escape square so that the bishop can't recapture. So this bishop can now no longer capture this knight, so g4 is like a protective shield. And after h5, trying to crack it open, which I calculated, I completely missed this resource that the engine gives. I was calculating g takes, bishop takes, h takes, f takes, and this looks really good to me because my bishop is all up in the king's face. My queen can really easily get into the game. My rooks have ways to lift up and give checks. This knight, it can very easily access the king side as well. This knight can easily access the king side with a fork. So this was all very good to me. I thought this was very good. I completely missed bishop g5 because you had to see this crazy line with h takes, and instead of capturing back the pawn, you played knight f2 and sacrificed a pawn. What? Knight d5, knight d4. Yeah, this would be crazy. Just tons of play for both sides. Like this knight is pinned, and maybe some tactics on here. This knight is very threatening here in black's position. You can't even move the queen properly because there may be tactics on c2. Looks really good, but it also looks very good and dangerous for the white pieces. I mean, this is dangerous, and if the queen ever captures here, then f7 will be very weak, and there's the open h file here. Yeah, there's many ideas here, so I thought after I saw this, like, this is really interesting, and maybe I should have calculated a bit further. But anyway, after bishop f5, he plays a mistake. He doesn't go for the g4 line, which would be best. He plays bishop to d2. And bishop d2 is a major mistake. The reason being that you had to play g4 so that you stop me from doing this. h6, knight h3, takes. Because now all you've got is just split pawns. Like, the idea of g4 is that in the line where you sacrifice a piece, or sorry, where was it? Yeah, in this line where you take, you still lose the knight and you have split pawns, but at least you get something in return, which is this very weak king for black, and this could be very dangerous. Whereas if you just let me capture like this with h6 and takes, black has no weaknesses. This is completely fine for black, and who's left with the bad structure is only white. This is really bad and easy to target, so this was already very good for me. So I continue with queen d7. It's a very natural developing move. I'm hitting the pawn on h3, forcing the king to defend, so he does. King g2. And here I had to make a decision. I don't play the best move. The best engine move here was to play knight d4. And the idea of knight d4 is just there's no counterpart to attack this from f3. Generally there's a knight on f3. In this case there's not, which means that my knight has the d4 square for itself, and I'm not really sure how you kick this knight out, and it's very powerful here by itself. So yeah, this is definitely a good move. I played rook fe8, which is a good game. It's a good move. Just not the best move. And the idea here for me that I figured was, if he allows me to take, I'm gonna force his queen to take back, and then my other rook will play rook e8 and hit the queen with tempo. So that's the tempo move. And I develop really quickly that way. So development really rapidly against this uncastled king would be definitely really strong. So he can't allow this. He takes and takes, which I still calculate. And yeah, in this scenario, I was also happy because, again, I still have this open e file, whereas he does not. And he hasn't really moved his rook. He hasn't moved his queen. This bishop is kind of stuck behind this this pawn here. This knight also kind of stuck, not really sure where it's going, and yeah, this king is very weak. So this was really why I play this way with the rooks, because my idea here is that white is really slow to mobilize their pieces to the king side. All of their pieces are stuck on the queen side, and I'm not sure how you're gonna get the pieces over here to defend this weak structure. So yeah, now queen c1, which again feels like a step in the wrong direction. You're moving more to the queen side, whereas the play is on the king side. So maybe a better move would be queen f1, so that you can tuck the king away and place the queen on g2 maybe. Yeah, queen c1, it just creates this very simple threat that black can defend with king h7. And king h7 is even an improving move because at least you're stepping out of this now. At least this is no longer an x-ray and you're safe from that. So yeah, just an improving move here for black. Rook b1, and again I had to take a long think. Knight d4, still the best move by far, but I was really frustrated with last game, and I had that in the back of my mind the whole game through. So my thought process here was basically, don't commit the same mistakes you did last time. Just play good chess here. So okay, what would good chess be in my opinion? b4 is definitely the push idea here. So he's threatening to play b4. If that's the case, then just a5. Lock him out completely. And now it's really not clear what white does here. You can't break through with b4. You have to bring the queen around to the f1 square, but again, how do you bring the other pieces in? Maybe bishop to e8 and bishop to g3, but that takes time. That's already 1, 2, 3 moves. Is it going to be fast enough is the question. And basically my mind was calculating this big race in my mind. So queen f1, finally knight d4, because now the pawn is loose. This pawn is now hanging, so you have to defend this. Probably the best idea here would be either bring the rook or bring the bishop. If you bring the bishop, then knight takes, and again, this pawn is very weak, so probably not this. Maybe just rook to c1. But he plays queen d1, which goes back. But you see, he's fighting for both sides, but with one piece only. Only the queen is defending now, because if the queen goes over to the queen side, yes, this is defended, but now how do you defend this? Which is why I play now rook e5. Threatening to play rook to h5 and taking the pawn. How do you defend? Definitely not with f4, which he plays. f4 is just, in my mind, no disrespect to my opponent, but I think that this move was quite sloppy. He played it really fast, kind of like he blitzed it out, and yeah, I don't think this was the best defense. I was calculating many things like sacking the pawn even with bishop e8, followed by bishop e1, followed by bishop g3, and giving up the pawn but defending the h2 important pawn. Yeah, I mean, definitely there were other chances here in the position. f4 was not it. It kind of just allows black to do exactly what he wanted with this move. And again, you can't really defend the pawn. There's actually no way to defend it. There's no move you could play to add the second defense to the pawn. So here he just gives it up and plays this push, and I take. And the idea here is that I still have queen h3 check ideas. And after queen e1, this is now mating. So this is how severe the problem got here for white. Like, none of the pieces are contributing to the defense on the king side, whereas all of my pieces are basically attacking here. This bishop on g7 is kind of tucked away, but the knights can move away and the bishop come to this very important diagonal here, cutting everything off. So yeah, the bishop does play an active role here. I'll give you guys a second here to calculate if you want. This move that white played, queen e1, it actually allows checkmate in 5 moves. So let's see. Okay, and if you found it, congratulations. The move starts off with queen h3 check. Queen h3 cutting the king off from all of these squares. So now the king can only go sideways or backwards. And he chooses to go sideways. If you go backwards, like king g1, this is even faster, mate, and you've got even got knight to f3 check, just winning a queen if you don't want to calculate. But I wanted to calculate. I wanted to be really precise because of last game, and you can see how much last game really got to me. So yeah, here I would have played queen takes h2, king f1, and now the king has no squares, and now queen h1. Now the king has to go up, and once it does, king f2, knight g4, and we're taking away these squares now. This knight takes away this one, this knight takes away this one, and really the only square you can go to with the king is basically this square here. And look at this coordination between the knights. When the king does go to this square, both of these knights control these squares as well. So this knight controls this knight controls this, and where do you really move? The king is in a box. And the now final mating move, either queen h2 or queen h3, and that is mate. And going back to the game, what he played was king f2, going to the side, followed by knight g4 check, king g1, knight f3 check, and he resigns. Because after the move king h1, which is forced, there's just queen takes h2 checkmate. So yeah, that was today's game, and yeah, it was a rough one, definitely a rough one for my opponent, and I can't really say he played badly. All that he played was really one imprecision at this point, and yeah, one mistake by not bringing the knight back, which is hard to see sometimes. So yeah, sorry, not playing g4 here. He had to play g4, which is really crazy and aggressive. So yeah, really hard to see this move, but it had to be found, and he didn't find it because he played f3. So yeah, just that one little mistake, and he got severely punished for it. So yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed this game. Hope you guys learned something about pawn structures and how to manage these positions. If you did enjoy, consider following, subscribing, and dropping a like. So yeah, I'll see you guys for game 9 in the next round. Bye.